Here's a show for you. Reggie Abbott has just turned 12 and must come to terms with the fact that she is growing up and is no longer a child. She's awkward, loud, playful, and not cool with change. She's got a family, 2 friends named Todd and Esther, and a key to a magical dimension where she can live crazy adventures in a place called Endless Island. And you're gonna say, oh, I've seen the show before. Kid has troubles, kid goes to a magical island, kid has an adventure that is a metaphor for their real-life troubles, kid learns a lesson. It's as formulaic and as episodic as cartoons can get, right? Yeah. So let's take the first episode. It starts off with Reggie's birthday and immediately establishes the aging theme. Reggie expects to get a bunch of toys, but her mother gives her hair products and lingerie instead, explaining that Reggie is supposedly past the age where she could get dolls as presents. This continues as the mother attempts to give away a bunch of her daughter's old toys at a yard sale, as if she was trying to completely move on from her daughter's childhood. However, Reggie is having none of that. She takes the toys and goes to Endless. The toys come to life, but so does a label maker that she brought by mistake, which becomes the villain of the episode. She defeats it, goes back to the real world, and states the lesson she's learned over one final conversation with her mom.
Did you decide what you want to keep?
Yeah. Actually, I decided to get rid of all of it.
Hey, that's great. Look at you being so mature.
I'm not mature.
Oh, good night, dear. Proud of you.
I'm proud of me too.
Wait, what? Where's the lesson? Reggie didn't learn anything. She didn't get rid of her toys, she turned them immortal. She didn't come to terms with giving away her childhood. In fact, she destroyed the one thing that symbolized that could happen in the first place. What is going on? Okay, maybe the second episode will take us back on track. Reggie's mom brings her daughter a few books dealing with the changes a body goes through during puberty. Reggie doesn't know about those changes and doesn't want to know. She takes the books with her to the island, attempting to destroy them, but once again they become the villain of the episode. She defeats the villain, goes back home, and has this conversation with her mother. What? No! This isn't how it's supposed to go! She's supposed to confront the inevitability of change, come to terms with it, go back home, have a heartfelt conversation with her mother through which she learns all about the process of growing up. This isn't how these stories work. And on that note, I say, I want to talk about 12 Forever. Created by Julia Vickerman and initially released as a minisode on Cartoon Network's official YouTube channel, this series pilot was eventually picked up by Netflix and developed into 25 episodes, which were released 4 years later. Very little was changed from the pilot, much to my delight, because I fell in love with the style of the series and was more than happy to learn that it would be getting an actual season. We lost Shane's design, but Reggie's was thankfully kept mostly intact, and the spirit of the episodes was also the same. Except that the Netflix incarnation doesn't waste any time telling us how deep they want to carry the questions of the show. Specifically, how much does Reggie actually need to change? We all know that Reggie needs to grow up. It is only natural, after all. You cannot stop the world from spinning or birthdays from happening. The very idea of being, as the show calls it, 12 forever, is in itself an impossible dream, since Reggie wasn't even able to be 11 forever. As a character, she's shown to be excessively childish, miss social cues, retreat too much into her imagination, and fail to relate to her peers. These are traits that could be generally taken as negative, and proof that the girl's got some growing to do. So here we've got our first theme. Reggie needs to face the facts and stop acting like a child. Easy enough. Except, as we see in the first 2 episodes, this isn't going to happen as quickly as one might expect, which feels a lot more like real life than a cartoon. People won't change from night to day just because they've gotten a year older. We see that Reggie is very reluctant to change and overall not a great fan of the concept, but more than that,
I like who I am now.
she feels she doesn't have to change. No matter the situation, Reggie is utterly and unapologetically herself.
Loser.
You're just jealous.
She never attempted to change to please anyone and won't let her spirit be crushed. Even if she struggled to make friends, she didn't modify her personality. No matter what her mother's expectations are, she doesn't submit herself to them. She doesn't see what is wrong with being creative and loud and even a little gross at times, and doesn't understand why the rest of the world seems to have a problem with it. This is a kid who is absolutely happy with being who she is, and who won't let herself be erased in favor of arbitrary social norms. How much of that happiness is a front for denial is up for debate, But the fact remains that most of the time it's other people who have a problem with her, and not her having an issue with herself. The only time we see her confidence be truly shaken is when she has to face her crush, but then again, that might as well just be the human experience. But how many of those problems can actually be solved by growing up? We are shown in flashbacks that even as a child, Reggie had trouble relating to others, way before kids had to learn to act cool. And despite all that, it was Reggie's usual creative, unhinged self that allowed her to make the friends she has today and to surround herself with people who actually respect her style. Why should she have to change when she's fine with being who she is? Shouldn't the rest of the world be the one to come to terms with the fact that she is the way she is and that there is no shame in being that way? Why should she want to waste her time on people who don't understand her potential? Which brings us to Endless Island. Through the colorful key tied around her neck, Reggie is able to transport herself to a magical dimension filled with lively characters where the sands bring toys to life and the party never stops. This is the place known as Endless Island, where she and her friends go to unwind and have crazy adventures that are sometimes vaguely related to whatever is going on in the real world. And other times it's just, watching The Big Bang Theory.
Shabunga!
Not much detail is given about the inhabitants of Endless. Some claim to have lived in the real world, some were made from scratch there, but they all share deep admiration for Reggie, whom they call 12. In the pilot, the island, known as Party Island instead of Endless, was supposed to be a manifestation of Reggie's subconscious. All its inhabitants, on the other hand, were also said to have been made by her. The Netflix series, however, makes no such claims, and it really doesn't seem to be the case. Reggie appears to have merely found the island instead of building it, and even though Todd was brought there by her, Esther also found the same island by herself, implying that it's neither of the girls' creation. On the other hand, the Islanders care a lot more for 12 than they do for the other kids. And Reggie herself is often surprised by the fact that the creatures' lives don't always revolve around her.
I mean, we spied on like 4 houses and nobody's even mentioned us yet. And I haven't seen a single picture of us in anyone's wall.
So, what is Endless, really? Is it a parallel dimension or a manifestation of the kid's subconscious? When Esther asks those same questions and attempts to study the island, she can't reach any results. It's far too random and appears to operate on dream logic exclusively. Reggie, on the other hand, never attempts to question it, simply being glad that she gets to be a part of it. Her connection to the island feels stronger than that of her friends. The Islanders' devotion is focused entirely on her. She has claimed several of its parts, saying that they belong to her. She's the only one so far that has made villains manifest themselves as she's trying to overcome her issues. Both Todd and Esther are convinced that whatever happens on Endless doesn't actually matter in the real world, but Reggie gets really defensive whenever they try to convince her of that. It would be easy to dismiss Endless as being some sort of Neverland-type place, an island of pure escapism that keeps the kids from growing old. From the looks of it, it really feels like paradise. Its bright, sunny colors stand in direct contrast against the bleakness of the town of Bethune. The kids have abilities and superpowers they couldn't even come close to having in the real world. But stopping the analysis there doesn't seem to bring much of a cohesive conclusion. It is established that time has no meaning on Endless, and that while it is technically possible to live forever by staying there, it has a great cost to both your body and your mind. Therefore, the island isn't exactly encouraging you to do so, even though it won't force you to leave either. And although it feels just like an absurdist escapism retreat, Endless does very much affect how the kids behave in the real world, even if they can't quite understand it. Take Samantha, for instance, a sad, sobering ghost created by the memory of a song that Reggie's dad used to sing to her before he left. Again, we follow the traditional cartoon formula that 12 Forever has already shown us that it loves to break. Reggie is facing issues in the real world, coming across a box of her dad's old stuff. She goes to Endless as a means of continuing her nostalgia trip, but ends up creating an enemy in the process, made from her own unresolved issues. Attempting to escape it, she flees back to the real world, where she has a heartfelt conversation with her mother, and returns ready to face the villain. And she does so not with violence, but instead by gifting it a house. Wait, what? Comparing these events to those of the first episode, the changes are a lot more significant than what they appear to be. Instead of straight up exploding the villain like she does the first time, Reggie gives it a place on Endless, essentially saying that she is okay with its presence. Both enemies were spawned from negative feelings and fears, the first from Reggie's fear of having her childhood be taken away from her, and the latter from her feelings of rejection and the ambivalence towards the memories of her father. Except, while she defeats the first villain by destroying it, she comes to terms with the second by acknowledging its feelings and giving it a home. Samantha, who spent the episode asking people to think about sad things even if they didn't want to, was quote-unquote defeated by being acknowledged and respected, and by being given a permanent place on the island. And this is a lesson that Reggie will most definitely carry with her. And now, I think it's time we talk about the Butt Witch. The Butt Witch is the most prevalent villain in the series, and serves as the official antagonist in the Endless segments. While the other villains stop showing up after being defeated, the Butt Witch keeps popping up on different episodes and continuing to cause mayhem. She is born, once again, from Reggie's negative feelings and fears, spawning from the books about puberty that the girl tosses into a volcano trying to destroy them. She moves in a sensual manner, speaks in a dragged voice, and lives a villainous life filled with vanity. She is therefore what Reggie fears the most: change, maturity, and, more specifically,
You're acting like you've never seen a grown woman before.
womanhood. The difficulty in defeating her for good stems from the fact that such a fear is always present in the girl's mind and very hard to overcome. The trouble that the Butt Witch causes also ties back somehow to things Reggie relates to being a woman: vanity, the failures of love and romance, and bodily changes, just to name a few. So far, with the other spawned enemies, Reggie has two routes to choose from: the destruction of the enemy and therefore the refusal of everything they represent, or the welcoming of the enemy, as reluctant as it might be, representing the willingness to confront and accept those feelings. And when Reggie has her final showdown against the Butt Witch, she chooses to keep her on the island. As much as Reggie refuses to understand the rules of Endless, it is Todd and Esther who are wrong in claiming that what happens there makes no difference. And you can see, through the chronology of the three villain defeats, how it is helping Reggie grow. Real growth isn't necessarily about succumbing to social norms or dressing a certain way or following certain trends. Real growth is confronting and understanding your feelings and admitting that even the scary ones have a place in you, and that accepting yourself for who you are is the only way you can be happy. And honestly, in the whole series, who is more themselves than Reggie? Does Reggie really have to change? And if so, is she the only one who has to? The show has certain traits that it wants you to associate with childishness. There are things such as denial and selfishness which must be overcome because they can hurt you or the people around you. Kids are prone to thinking the world revolves around them or that everyone should only do what the kid wants to do, which stops them from respecting other people's opinions. But there are also positive traits such as creativity, freedom, and self-confidence. A world that demands you abandon childhood also appears to make you walk away from such things, hence why Reggie is so hesitant to grow up. The show also has certain things that it wants you to associate with adulthood: responsibility, profound relationships, facing your feelings. The adults of the series, however, are shown to be just as flawed as the kids, if not more so. Todd's father constantly negates his responsibilities thanks to his midlife crisis, making his son take over the role that he should be performing. Reggie's mom constantly tries to push her daughter towards a certain style because that's what she wants in a daughter. Their English teacher doesn't take her job seriously, and the rest of the staff is pretty unhelpful a lot of the times, even if it's mostly because of the system that surrounds them. Which in turn means that the world of adults is a world of frustration. Even the Butt Witch, the demonic manifestation of a grown woman, feeds off negativity and anger, turning her extremely powerful. As if this is what fuels adulthood as a whole. The way to defeat her, on the other hand, is through love and friendship, which is found everywhere on Endless. Which side is better then? Is it best to just remain a kid forever? Well, not really. the show actually goes out of its way to state that eternally living on Endless is a bad idea. Even Reggie, who should be all for it and should be against change, is growing up more than she realizes, and that in no way means that she is losing the things that make her so wonderful. And even from the very beginning, Reggie already displayed her own brand of maturity. It is there when, once the kids were confronted with their most embarrassing memories, Reggie was the first one to make peace with her past self, and the only one who didn't use those memories to spy on her friends' past and laugh at them. It is there when her plans to continue the series she and her brother had started fell through. And she immediately realizes that the thing making her upset isn't that the others aren't playing the way she wants them to, and that it's actually a good thing that they're having fun in their own way. It is there every time Reggie doesn't let herself be knocked down by others, or follows her own personal style, or faces her own feelings. She's growing, as she has always been, even if most people can't see it. And that's because, in the journey that is growing up, there is no perfect path or role model to be followed. There is no right or wrong way to do it. The adults don't have all the answers, and Endless won't bring them all either. There is one last thing I want to talk about. When entering Endless for the first time after her birthday, the number on Reggie's chest changes, to which she comments,
Oh yeah, I guess I'm 12 now.
and everyone in the island proceeds to call her 12. It isn't until a flashback later on that we find out that, being 11 years old when she first discovered Endless, Reggie was called 11 by all the islanders. After her birthday, the name by which they call her is the only thing that changes in the way the islanders treat Reggie. Growing up doesn't mean people will stop loving you. Endless Island, with all of its nonsense and its utter lack of logic, shows us that impermanence is everywhere, as it should be. Change doesn't stop you from being awesome. Reggie doesn't have to be 12 forever. She just has to be Reggie. And that, perhaps, is the only thing that won't change. Reggie is Reggie, good and bad, and Reggie is awesome. Thank you for watching. I cannot believe that I just made a video. If you like the video, you can do those things such as clicking the like button and commenting on the video and subscribing to the channel, because then I can make more videos and you can watch them. If you watched this video until the end, just know that I love you from the bottom of my heart. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.